Hi, my name's Olivia Moore, and so first off, good evening. I know my voice sounds really funny right now, but I'm super sick. And so first I'm gonna start off with history, because that was what the video was kind of about. But back to the point. So first off, it was said in the video, the story we tell, that all men are created equal. And it is said that was said to be America's core. On the other hand, however, slaves and other races had no rights compared to whites. Additionally, people assigned meaning based on how you looked. For instance, if someone was black, they were considered dumb or to have no authority. In order to back this up, George Washington wrote a book and said things like blacks were inferior to whites. Additionally, he was also very contradicting to himself because he said that all men were created equal, even though he was someone who owned around 175 slaves. This book supposedly justified slavery in America. Moreover, there were not just African Americans, but Indians as well. They were considered savages. However, it was said that they could be civilized with better education and religion, just like whites. And if the whites were able to convert the Indians to be like them and confine them to small acres of land, it would open up even more land for the new white settlers to move in. Moving forward, Jefferson then wrote how Indians could be in American society, however, blacks could not. Multiple whites then tried to prove this scientifically, and the whites were all powerful compared to the blacks. Many people then explained this exact proposal over and over again, and as more time went on, the Louisiana Purchase happened. However, this land was completely invaded by the Indians. Then some of the tribe just converted themselves in order to be like the whites, like it was said. They then did things like sign over 90% of the land, and the Indians switched from farmers to hunters, and they even learned a whole new religion. The U.S. then went even further and took away even more land and went as far as killing the Indians, just to make sure they went away. There was a lot of debate with the government, and then the Indian Removal Act was then passed in the 1830s. The whites then told Indians to be their authentic selves because of this, because they wanted to know who was Indian and who was not. All of the known Indians then were forced out of their homes at gunpoint, so they basically just had to leave. Many of them died from this, and then they had to go on the Trail of Tears in order to leave, and a third of them died. And as time went on, 80 years later, the Americans then went to Mexico to try to acquire even more land. And along, just like the Indians and the blacks, or African Americans, Americans also said the Mexicans were inferior to them. Therefore, they took a third of Mexicans' land. After getting all this land, there was a debate in America on whether or not there should be slavery on the west side where we got that land. There was more and more discussion, but the main reason that kept coming up was that it was scientifically proven that all whites were smarter, and that because of our skull size, which is very, very interesting to me. And so researchers kept saying things like this, and then this made the whites feel better about themselves and kind of justified slavery a little bit. And so they didn't feel bad about it, and it was said that all the other races were completely different species compared to the whites. But after years and years passed about the slavery issue and whether slavery was right or not, it led to a war in America. This war ended up the Northerners won, and so slaves were considered free. However, the blacks and other races were still discriminated against, and the whites were still in the hierarchy. This topic somewhat leads to the next reading about it's more about today, where that was the past. And so it kind of shows how our past really affected how we are now with socialization and stuff like that. So the psychosocialization, Bobby then explains some key points that are essential for us as readers to understand behind socialization. First off, he applies that people make the assumption that if we begin to appreciate the differences, then everything would be right in the world. And then he tells the audience he wishes life were simpler. I mean, we all do. However, we all know it isn't. He then goes into detail about how each of us has a particular set of social identities. Additionally, these identities propose unequal roles in the dynamic system of oppression. Furthermore, the socialization process has multiple ways of processing. For example, it can be pervasive, consistent, circular, self-perpetuating, and even invisible. Also quoted from the reading, we get systematic training in how to be each of our own social identities throughout our lives. This shows the readers that each of our own identities is specific to us. And then in that same article reading area, they show a map about the cycle of socialization and how everything is just affecting one another. For instance, being socialized on a personal level by our parents, our teachers, and then it goes into our culture, such as our religions and medias, and it just keeps on cycling and cycling and cycling again. It just shows how each of us is unique because we kind of all take a different track in life a little bit. Another good point that is brought up about socialization begins even before we are born. So therefore, there is no reason to blame each other for our specific traits. And another fact about this is about how the dominant groups are considered the norm in today's society. They are said to have more social power and are more privileged. This group mostly consists of white males. On the other hand, there is another group that is referred to as the subordinate or the target group. This group is victimized, discriminated against, and struggles with obstacles of life. The type of people that are included in this are people like women, disabled people, and even Jews and other religions. People are considered unlucky if they are born in this group. In addition to all of this, our parents are very influential in the way our lives are shaped and how we think about things. Quoted from the reading, we have been exposed without initial question to a strong set of rules, roles, and assumptions that we cannot help but shape our sense of ourselves in the world. This proves to the viewers just how much power a role our guardians in our lives can have. Also, I found it really interesting that he wrote about how school and our social norms, in school, were configured there as well. For instance, it is said that girls should not be in football, but rather something girlier, such as volleyball or dance. Moreover, in addition to all this, we can be brainwashed by other things in our culture, such as media. Not brainwashed, but affected by, you know what I mean? For example, things such as with media, television and even song lyrics can affect this. With all this in mind, people try to go against the social norms, which I believe is a great thing, but they're considered the troublemakers in the world. However, no matter how much these troublemakers fight for equality, it sometimes is just so hard and hurts so much to fight because they are just nope, 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 nope. It's just too hard in the end. He then shows us, even though fighting for what we believe in may seem impossible, we still need to educate everyone, and we need to take a stand so that we can have diversity in the world and that our norms aren't just what it is. Because if we were all in our social norms, the world would be completely basic and boring. But yeah, thank you for listening. Have a nice day.